In the last episode, we spoke about retrieval, indexing, the indexes, the APIs, and the content passages that determine whether information even enters the system. Now, once a page is retrieved, the model doesn't just process it like a complete web page, like how we humans do, right? In most AI search or retrieval setups today, the model works with text segments that fit inside the limited context window. So this means the system usually operates on chunks of text. This is what they call it as chunking. You would have heard this quite a lot of times in various places. They talk about chunking. Now, this is the reason why. So the model itself works like they take the text segments and they fit into the learning mechanism. So they take the chunks of text from the web pages, they extract the passages from that chunk, and then also they look into the individual statements from it, not the full page like how a human would read. Now, the visual design, the layout, the branding, they only matter if they are explicitly conveyed in the text itself, or if the system is designed to process that rendered pages. Now, in many cases, what happens is the model works with the text that it can reason over. Because of that, the unit that matters is not the page; it is the statement that you make on the page. That's the reason people say answer in the first paragraph itself, or answer as quickly as you can, rather than elaborating it into a lengthy content, like how the traditional SEO world works, where the charges are made based on the content word count, right? So people tend to explain a lot of things what could have been easily explained in a couple of lines. Now, the clear statements, they are the ones which are easy to retrieve, pair, and reuse. Because imagine, guys, like there is going to be a lot of resources that is going to be consumed, a lot of power is going to be consumed for processing these things. So it's quite important that the web pages, the clear statements are presented so that these LLMs can easily extract the statements or the context from those pages. Now, the information embedded inside these long narrative paragraphs is harder for these systems, right? And the information expressed as direct, like self-contained explanations, they are a bit more easier to reuse in a more safer case. Now, another factor that the model represents is also the scoping perspective, the scope. Now, the first is the statements, then the scope. Now, the explanations that state where they apply and where they do not, and these kind of things, they reduce the uncertainty. For example, this approach works when, or this doesn't apply if certain cases are met, then this may not apply. So these kind of statements, the explanations of the state, they actually help to reduce the uncertainty. Now, these statements limit the interpretation. For example, the Search Engineering Masterclass, now whatever that we are doing so far, this is primarily to understand in depth rather than going with the noise and trying to learn only surface kind of information. We're not interested on it. We want to learn slowly but more deeply so that we understand all the concepts in depth, right? So explicitly calling this out will help me and also the series to reduce people who are already tech experts. They don't have to waste time in learning these things. They may say they know about it, so they don't have to waste time hearing this entire series. So like that, giving explanations clearly, who is this for, or when does these approaches work, helps reduce the uncertainty. Now, limiting these kind of interpretations reduces the chance of misuse. And when the system recombines, because as you have known so far, we have learned that multiple answers are taken and then they are assembled in the system and then an answer is being given. That's the reason you see when an answer is given, a lot of sources are being mentioned by these LLMs. And consistency matters a lot in these cases. Now, if the same concept is described differently across different sections, or if the guidance itself is like contradicting itself, then the system will have difficulty in reconciling the entire information and packing it into an answer. Now, these inconsistent explanations are less likely to be reused because they introduce a lot of ambiguity. Now, the structure influences this. Now, creating a proper structure ensures that this helps in getting more and more visibility for your content. Not just the visual structure, I'm saying the logical separation of the content that you explain itself. Now, the definitions, separated from the comparisons, facts separated from opinions. So these kind of logical separations, they are pretty much important. Now, the chunking is effective only when these separations are real. Now, formatting without giving any concept clarity, or these does not give reliability for these LLMs to reuse. Now, the authority works differently than many expect. Now, traditionally, authority means what? We will build more backlinks, we'll build the domain authority, the brand gets featured on a lot of places, it has more authority. Now, that's how traditionally it has been. But for AI systems, these do not directly recognize the reputation, awards, or the brand value unless those signals appear in the text that is being retrieved. So rather than just showing the awards in the images, the text that carries it, that explains that this is an award winning solution or award winning company, those, and also featured on, if you're featured on maybe a BBC or a CNN. So, mentioning those trusted data sources. I'm not sure if those are trusted, by the way, not commenting on it. But, what often looks like authority, right, in AI answers, they represent repeated reuse of consistent explanations across multiple sources. So a well-known brand with vague content, it can be reused. But the only problem is it'll be reused in a less way compared to a source which is lesser known, but they have given very clear explanations. There is a very high chance that they may get an upper hand. That's the reason you may see, compared to bigger brands, a lot of smaller brands are also getting featured, because compared to Google, where Google gives more priority to brands, they give more priority to the authority of the websites because they don't want to take risk in the search results. But in LLMs, it's becoming a level playing field where even lesser known websites, if they give a clear explanation, they get featured. Now, the downside of this approach is sometimes because of hallucination and because of obviously people misuse these things. So sometimes these LLMs tend to give wrong answers, primarily because the way they learn from these sources, if it is giving wrong information, then it may also give you a wrong answer. Now, anyways, up to this point in the series, now we have looked at fan out, how it explains how the questions expand, the drift. We looked at the same question asked twice, it may create a different fan out sequence as well, and the retrieval that explains how content enters the system. Now, what determines the important thing that you need right now is, about the fan out queries, the drift, the retrieval. But the biggest question is, what determines the inclusion of your brand or your answer? Now, the biggest thing is that how the model can extract the statements from your content. Now, that is very important. AI systems do not reuse your pages, they reuse the fragments for reasoning. If no part of your page can be cleanly integrated, the page is unlikely to appear in the final answer. Even if it's going to rank well in traditional search, in LLM visibility, it's going to have a bit of a trouble. Now, that is why page level metrics alone do not describe AI visibility. Unfortunately, people are approaching it like how they approach it like SEO front. Now, some of the people I look forward to in the SEO world, they do say it's all SEO only, right? AI level optimization doesn't exist. But I beg to differ on it, because yes, 80% is on the regular SEO front, but those 20% are these ones where we say, how do we ensure that these content are, how the chunking happens, right? In terms of the explanation of the content, the statements that we make, all these things, it should be properly segmented. I'm not denying that in traditional content, it will be ignored. Absolutely not. A lot of such checks will be done. But if you look at vast majority of people, right, they tend to follow flow of the more content I write, the more visibility I get in search results. So that is a whole concept that SEO has been built on. Probably why can't we change looking into this angle also, like how do we answer faster without fluff content, without the entire content slop, right? So what matters is where individual explanations survive, the reasoning process. Now, content written only to persuade the humans, they often struggle here, right? Because here we are no longer just talking about line by line. You don't expect somebody is going to read entire content. I'm saying someone in the sense here, the AI systems, not the humans. So like I said, the AI systems is not going to read your entire content like how humans do. So the content written has to be very clear, and it has to be as shorter and more as brief. Rather than saying shorter, I should say it should just answer the question directly without adding too much fluff. And when you answer it in a more consistent way, so that wherever you're going to represent your brand and answer that question, ensure that it is quite similar across the board. Now, in the next episode, we'll focus on how this content can be structured so that these explanations remain intact, which is very important, right? So because when they are broken apart and recombined, the thing that survives is consistent content. So yeah, see you tomorrow.